Hello, my name's Mr. Bates, and today we're looking at this activity called This Not That. Now, what This Not That is a activity that uses examples and non-examples. It's a more advanced activity. Some of the activities we've been looking at have been learning the basic facts and trying to memorize those and repeat those, and that's good. But what we were trying to do also is go on to a bit of a higher order learning, which means learning deeper about each fact and going into the details. And that's what using examples is good for. We're going to be looking at two main ways to use this, not that. The first one is where you generate your own you generate your own examples and non-examples, which is fine. Well, I'm going to give you an example of that. But the other alternative now is that you can use artificial intelligence to generate those examples for you. But that doesn't mean you don't do any of the work. Because remember, if you're not working, if you're not thinking, you're not learning, and it's not useful. It generates the examples, but then you have to think about those examples. Okay, so why would we do this, not that activity? Well, by thinking of examples and thinking why they're good or why they're bad, then that gives us a much better understanding of what a concept is and what it isn't. And it helps us really unpick the details, get into those details, those tricky bits about the concept. How would we do it? Well, first of all, it's dead straightforward. You get a knowledge organizer or you get a textbook and you pick your concept or you pick your fact to do the activity on. And then what you're going to need to do is simply think of some examples of that concept. You might spend 30 seconds or a minute, try to get 3 to 6 examples written down. Some examples are going to be better than others, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what you should be doing is then thinking about your examples and why they are good examples of the concept that you're talking about. Then later, you'll be going to do the non-examples and again thinking about why they aren't good examples of that concept. Okay. So let's look at how to do this. And the topic I've chosen is mammals, something we're all pretty familiar with. So let's go for some examples. The first one I thought of doing was a dog. So, yep, great. That's an example of a mammal. Second example, well, I found another picture of a different dog. But really, that isn't a great second example to do because what we want to do with our examples, we want to show how it varies, okay, not just keep to the same thing. So, really, it would have been better for me to choose something like a horse or something else that differs from the dog. Helps us understand what a mammal is. All right, so here we go. We can start thinking about what makes these good examples. And they've both got hair, so that might be the thing that tells us if something's a mammal or not. If you've done your examples and they're really easy, you haven't really thought about them, they're so quick and easy. Well, that tells you that really you need to be trying a little bit harder to think of some more tricky examples. Examples people might be confused about whether they're mammals or not. So, an example I've got here is a whale. It hasn't got hair, so is it a mammal? It swims underwater. Do we have mammals underwater? At the top we've got a bat. Do mammals fly? At the bottom, we've got a mole rat. It hasn't got any fur or hair again. Same for the rhino. Are they all mammals? Aren't they mammals? So they're slightly trickier ones and get you thinking that little bit more. And that's what we want from this activity. Once you've done your examples, well, then you can go to your non-examples and think about giving those. And here's not a mammal. Well, it's obviously not a mammal. It's not even an animal. So it's not a very good example. And my second example, well, it's probably even worse because we already know that isn't a mammal. It's just obvious to us. So really, we should be trying to think of better non-examples. So choosing other animals and even similar animals to the mammals that we do know. So let's go on to those trickier examples. Some things that people might get a bit confused about, things like a penguin. Is it a mammal or not? Pangolin, is that a mammal? The shark, is that a mammal? Well, a whale was a mammal. And here we've got a manatee. Is that a mammal or not? It's good. It tests you to really understand what a concept is by finding those tricky examples and non-examples. By the way, 2 of those were mammals and 2 of them weren't. So maybe you know which ones were. At the start, I said there's going to be 2 ways to do this activity. So that was an example of the first way. You generate your own examples and non-examples. Um, but there is a second way. And now we have artificial intelligence to help us. But what we can do is we can ask artificial intelligence to generate those examples and non-examples for us. But remember, that isn't the job done, because if that's doing it for us, then we haven't done any thinking, we haven't done any learning, we're no better off at understanding. After they've generated examples, we need to be thinking about what makes them good examples, which ones are examples, that sort of thing. So there's lots of different AI bots to choose from. The one I've chosen is the one I'm most familiar with, which is ChatGPT. So all you need to do is type that into your search engine. And once you've got your ChatGPT open, put the question to the artificial intelligence, it will then generate a whole list of examples and non-examples of your concept. So here's the question that I put in, just in case you wanted to copy that. I asked it to provide a random list of 10 examples and non-examples of mammals, because that's the concept that I was interested in. You could insert any concept or fact in there. I also added on to the end, please do not identify which is an example and which is a non-example. I wanted to test myself to figure out if I knew or not. So here was my list. I can be choosing which ones are examples and then thinking about, well, what makes those mammals? What is similar about each one of those things? So I'm getting to understand what a mammal is a bit better by doing that. Once you've got your non-examples, how do I know they're not mammals? Okay, what are they missing? Those sort of questions I'll be asking myself. Are they good examples, these things, or were they too easy? Were some of them tricky? Were some of them easy? Those are the sort of questions that you want to be asking. Now, once you've asked AI to generate the examples and non-examples, well, if you're already not sure which one's which, you can always ask AI to tell you. Okay, so all you need to do is type that in. Please identify which of the list above are mammals, or whatever the concept is that you give you the answers to check. So when would we use this not that activity? Well, the good thing about it is that it doesn't matter if you really understand a topic really well or you're not too sure about it. Thinking of examples and thinking about those examples will always help you improve your understanding. It will always go into those details, help solidify exactly what this concept is, what it isn't, and also it will highlight those common errors that people make so that you won't make them in the future. As usual, it's now your turn to have a go. So you choose from either generating those examples and non-examples yourself or getting AI to do that for you. Remembering that it's important that you do the thinking. You then write your examples and think about those examples. What makes them good examples? Write your non-examples. What makes them not examples of the thing that you're talking about? Remember, if it's been easy to do those examples and non-examples, go back and think of trickier ones that really get you thinking about what this thing is and what this thing isn't. Today's activity is what I call a mini next level activity. These mini next level activities are an advancement on just the memorizing of facts. So what we're doing here, we're trying to sort of deeply understand the facts. How do they interconnect and how they fit in? And if you get that level of understanding, you'll find that you don't really need to memorize and go back and check. You already know it. Okay, so that's what we're aiming for. I hope you find that a good use of your time. Thank you for listening.